The skulls were perfectly clean. 4 years in the belly of an oak tree, and not a single mark of decay. 18 hours earlier. Tom Wheeler had been cutting trees in Oregon forests for 37 years. His chainsaw had bitten through redwoods, thick as cars, pines that remembered the Civil War, and oaks that stood before Columbus sailed. But on that foggy October morning, when his blade hit something that shouldn't exist inside a 400-year-old oak, he knew his life was about to change forever. The metal screech made him release the throttle immediately. Chains could snap, kick back, kill a man in seconds. Tom stepped back, examining the ancient oak's trunk. The cut was clean, about 4 feet up from the base, right where the Forestry Service had marked for removal. Disease containment, they said. Some kind of beetle infestation spreading through this section of the Cascade Range. Before we start the story, write what city you are from. We are very interested in where you are watching our video from. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. He peered into the gap his saw had created. There was a hollow inside, which wasn't unusual for old oaks. What was unusual was the metallic glint catching the morning light. Tom grabbed his flashlight, angled it into the opening. Jesus Christ! 2 human skulls stared back at him. Clean, white, arranged side by side like museum pieces. Between them, a Celtic ring gleamed on what might have been a finger bone. The Brennan sisters? Had to be. Everyone in Cedar Grove knew their story. Sarah, 22, environmental science student at Portland State. Emily, 19, working at the Cedar Grove Diner while figuring out her life. Vanished October 15, 2019. Their car found 2 days later at Whispering Falls Trailhead. No bodies, no evidence of struggle, no explanation. Until now. Detective Ray Norton arrived within the hour, followed by state police, FBI, forensics teams that transformed the quiet forest into a crime scene. The oak tree became evidence. Every ring, every root, every leaf suddenly mattered. "You touch anything?" Norton asked Tom. "Just what you see. Made the cut, saw the skulls, backed away, and called you folks." Norton studied the cavity. The skulls were positioned deliberately, facing outward. The space around them showed signs of chemical treatment, the wood stained dark but not rotted. Someone had prepared this tomb carefully. "Who else knows about this tree?" Norton asked. "It's kind of a landmark. Been here forever. Forestry Service has it in all their maps." Tom paused. Derek Morrison would know more. He's the ranger for this section. Derek Morrison arrived 20 minutes later in his Forestry Service truck, moving with the easy confidence of someone who knew every tree, every trail, every secret the forest held. At 38, he'd been with the service for 12 years, the last 6 as senior ranger for this section. "Heard you found them," Derek said, not asking, just stating. He studied the scene with professional detachment. "The Brennan sisters?" "Looks like it. You knew them?" "Everyone knew them. Istams, spent a lot of time out here. Smart girl, passionate about conservation." Derek walked around the oak, examining it with expert eyes. "See these holes? Someone bored into this tree? Multiple times." Norton looked closer. Derek was right. Several bore holes, maybe an inch in diameter, had been drilled into the trunk at various heights, all carefully sealed with some kind of resin. "That's not natural?" Norton asked. "Definitely not, but they're not recent either. See how the bark has grown around them? These were made years ago." Derek pulled out his phone, checking something. "This tree was part of a study in the 70s. Dr. Eugene Marsh from Oregon State. He was researching internal decay patterns. The boreholes would be from his core samples." "So someone knew about the hollow." "Anyone with access to old forestry records would know. It's not exactly secret." Derek paused. "There's something else you should know. Maria Santos, she owns the diner where Emily worked. She asked me about tree preservation techniques a few months before the girls disappeared. Said she was interested in natural preservation for some art project. Norton made a note. Maria Santos. The Cedar Grove Diner was the last place anyone had seen the sisters alive. They'd had dinner there the night they vanished, left around 9:30 according to the original investigation. The original investigation. Norton had reviewed those files a dozen times. Jacob Brennan, the sisters' older brother, had been the primary suspect. Fresh out of prison after serving 3 years for fraud, Jacob had returned to Cedar Grove just 3 months before his sisters vanished. There'd been disputes about their parents' estate. The parents had died in a car accident while Jacob was imprisoned, leaving everything to Sarah and Emily. Jacob felt cheated. Witnesses reported heated arguments at the family lawyer's office. "We need to notify the family," Norton said. "Jacob's probably already on his way," Derek said. "News travels fast in Cedar Grove." He was right. Jacob Brennan's truck roared up the forest access road 10 minutes later, skidding to a stop just outside the crime scene tape. At 45, prison had aged him beyond his years. His face carried the permanent tension of someone always expecting trouble. "Where are they? Where are my sisters?" Jacob pushed against the tape, 2 officers moving to restrain him. "Sir, you need to stay back," Norton said. "Those are my sisters in there. I have a right to see them." "Not yet. This is a crime scene." Jacob's face contorted. 4 years. 4 years I've been telling you people they didn't just run away. 4 years of being treated like a criminal because I was the convenient suspect. And now you find them stuffed in a tree?" He spat on the ground. "They got what they deserved for betraying family." The officers tensed. Norton raised his hand, calming them. "What do you mean by that, Mr. Brennan?" Jacob's anger deflated slightly. "Nothing. I didn't mean anything. It's just, they were my sisters, my blood, and they treated me like a stranger when I got out. Changed the locks on our parents' house. Wouldn't even let me get my things." "Where were you the night they disappeared?" "Same place I told you 4 years ago, halfway house in Portland. Ask Randy Moss, the house manager. I had a 10 p.m. curfew. Never missed it." But even as Jacob spoke, Norton noticed something. His work boots, worn and stained, had a distinctive tread pattern. The same pattern found in a partial print near the sisters' abandoned car 4 years ago. A detail that hadn't meant much then, but now. "We'll need to ask you some questions, Mr. Brennan." "Of course you will. It's always me, isn't it?" Jacob turned to leave, then stopped. "You want to know who you should be talking to?" Maria Santos. She had Emily working late shifts, alone, with all kinds of strangers coming through, and she was the last one to see them alive. Maria Santos sat in the interview room at Cedar Grove Police Station 3 hours later. At 52, she carried herself with the careful precision of someone used to being watched. Her hands, Norton noticed, bore the scars of decades in food service, but also something else. Faint chemical stains that looked almost medical. "They were good girls," Maria said, not waiting for questions. Emily especially, hard worker, never complained about the late shifts or the difficult customers. "What time did they leave the diner that night?" Maria hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but Norton caught it. "Around 9:30. They paid, said goodbye, left." "Were they meeting someone?" Another hesitation. "I warned them about dangerous people in these forests. Loggers, drifters, men who've been alone too long. But kids don't listen." "You were a nurse before you bought the diner." Maria's expression tightened. "That was a long time ago." "Lost your license for stealing medications." "I was helping patients who couldn't afford prescriptions. The board didn't see it that way." Norton pulled out an evidence bag containing a book. "We found this in your office at the diner. Advanced Techniques in Biological Preservation. Interesting reading for a diner owner." "I have many interests. Reading isn't a crime." Several pages are torn out, the chapters on chemical preservation of organic tissue. Maria's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it nervously, then back at Norton. "Am I under arrest?" "Should you be?" "I want a lawyer." Norton let her go, but assigned surveillance. As Maria drove back to her diner, she made 3 phone calls, all to burner phones, all disconnected after single rings. A code. That evening, Norton stood in the forest with Dr. Patricia Huang, the forensic anthropologist brought in from Portland. "This is sophisticated," Dr. Huang said, examining the cavity. Someone knew exactly what they were doing: the chemical treatment, the positioning, the seal. This wasn't just hiding bodies. This was preservation. For what purpose? That's your job to figure out, but I can tell you this took planning and maintenance. These chemicals would need to be refreshed periodically, or the bodies would have decomposed despite the treatment. So someone's been coming back here. For 4 years, yes, someone with regular access who wouldn't be questioned for being in the forest. Derek Morrison appeared at the tree line, having finished his section survey. "Found something you should see," he called out. Norton followed him 50 yards through dense undergrowth to a small clearing. Derek pointed to the ground where old tire tracks were still faintly visible, preserved under a layer of fallen leaves. These matched the width of a delivery van, like the one Maria uses for the diner's supplies. Norton examined the tracks. They were old, but protected from rain by the canopy above. Derek was proving very helpful. Almost too helpful. "How often do you patrol this section?" Norton asked. "Weekly, usually, but this area's been restricted for the last month because of the beetle treatment." "And before that?" "Regular patrols. I file reports on everything." Derek pulled out his phone again, scrolling through digital logs. "See? Every visit documented." As Norton reviewed Derek's meticulous records, his phone rang. The forensics lab. "Detective, we found something on the ring, engraved on the inside. S&M forever." But here's the interesting part. The engraving was done after the ring was placed in the tree. That's impossible. Not if someone had access to the cavity. The engraving is fresh, maybe 6 months old. Norton's mind raced. Someone had been visiting these bodies, maintaining them, even adding to the scene. This wasn't just murder. This was something else entirely. That night, security footage from a gas station 10 miles from the forest was recovered from damaged hard drives. Grainy, degraded, but clear enough. Jacob Brennan's truck, driving toward the forest on the night his sisters disappeared. The timestamp showed 9:47 p.m., but something was wrong with the footage. The timestamp flickered, digital artifacts suggesting tampering, or age, or both. Jacob was brought in for questioning the next morning. "That's not possible," he insisted. "I was in Portland. Check the records." "We did. Your supervisor at the halfway house says the records could have been falsified. You did the intake logs yourself." "Why would I kill my own sisters?" "The inheritance, $2 million from your parents' insurance and estates. Money that should have been split 3 ways." "I didn't care about the money." "You served 3 years for fraud. Money seemed to matter then." Jacob's lawyer, David Chen, interrupted. "My client has an alibi. He was at Murphy's Bar in Portland that night." Chen produced a receipt. Timestamp 10:15 p.m. It's a 3-hour drive from Cedar Grove to Portland. He couldn't have been in both places. But when Norton called Murphy's Bar, the bartender couldn't confirm. "October 15th, 2019, you're asking me to remember one guy from 4 years ago? All I can tell you is we get a lot of ex-cons from the halfway house. They all look the same to me. Desperate." Ex-cons. Desperate. Jacob fit the profile perfectly. His cellmate from prison, Marcus Webb, had come forward with a disturbing claim. Jacob had bragged about handling family business once he got out, about taking back what was his. But Marcus Webb had his own problems. 3 arrests since his release. A reputation for selling information to whoever paid. His testimony was suspect at best. The first act was closing, but nothing was clear. 3 suspects, each with means, motive, and opportunity. Jacob with his inheritance and anger. Maria with her chemical knowledge and secrets. And in the background, helpful, supportive Derek Morrison, who knew every inch of the forest and every detail of the case. As Norton stood at the oak tree that night, watching forensic teams carefully extract the remains, he noticed something. One of the bore holes Derek had pointed out didn't match the others. It was newer, the resin seal slightly different in color. Someone had been maintaining this tomb. Someone with access, knowledge, and a reason to keep the sisters preserved, but hidden. But who? The violent brother? The secretive diner owner? Or someone else entirely? The only certainty was that Sarah and Emily Brennan had been murdered. Everything else was shadows and speculation, except for one detail nobody had noticed yet. In Emily's journal found in her bedroom, a single line written the day before she disappeared. Dee knows about the tree. Dee Derek? Or someone else? The journal entry seemed innocuous, just a note about someone knowing about a tree. In a town surrounded by forest, it meant nothing, or everything. The halfway house records were perfect, too perfect. Detective Norton sat in Randy Moss's office at the Portland Reformation Center, studying the October 2019 logbooks. Jacob Brennan's signature appeared at 9:58 p.m. on October 15th, 2 minutes before curfew. The handwriting was steady, confident. Not the scrawl of someone who'd just driven 3 hours after committing murder. "You're absolutely certain he was here?" Norton asked. Randy Moss, 61 years old with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many broken men try to rebuild, nodded slowly. Jacob never missed curfew, not once in 3 months. Could someone have signed for him? We have protocols, visual confirmation for every check-in. Randy pulled out another binder. But I'll be honest, Detective. October 2019 was chaotic. We had 43 residents, only 2 night staff. If someone wanted to game the system, they could. They could, but Jacob wasn't that sophisticated. He was a numbers guy who got caught stealing from pension funds, not exactly a criminal mastermind. Norton's phone buzzed. The lab. He stepped outside to take the call. Detective, we've analyzed the chemical composition from the tree cavity. It's a specific formulation, formaldehyde, methanol, and something else, propylene glycol. It's used in medical preservation, but also in industrial food storage. Industrial food storage, like what a diner might use. Norton drove back to Cedar Grove, arriving at Maria's diner just after the lunch rush. Through the window, he could see her working the counter, serving coffee to loggers and truck drivers with practiced efficiency. She moved like someone who'd learned to be invisible, to blend into the background of other people's lives. Derek Morrison was there, sitting at the counter, eating a sandwich. He saw Norton approach and waved him over. "Detective, any progress?" "Following leads. You eat here often?" "Most days. Maria makes the best coffee in town." Derek lowered his voice. "She seems nervous lately. Dropped 3 plates yesterday." Norton ordered coffee and watched Maria work. Her hands shook slightly as she poured. When she turned to the grill, he noticed something. A scar on her neck, usually hidden by her collar. It looked like a chemical burn, old but severe. "Maria, can we talk?" She led him to the back office, a cramped space filled with supply invoices and old photographs. One caught Norton's eye. Maria, much younger, in a nurse's uniform standing next to an elderly woman in a hospital bed. "That's Mrs. Brennan," Maria said quietly. "Sarah and Emily's grandmother. I cared for her before she died." "You knew the family?" "Everyone knows everyone in Cedar Grove. Mrs. Brennan was special, though. She used to talk about her granddaughters constantly, how proud she was, how they were going to change the world." Maria's voice turned bitter. She never mentioned Jacob. It was like he didn't exist for her. Must have hurt him. It destroyed him. He'd visit her in the hospital, and she'd ask who he was. Every time. Not because of dementia. She just chose to forget him after the fraud conviction. Norton pulled out the preservation book. "Tell me about this." Maria sighed. "After I lost my nursing license, I got interested in alternative preservation methods, natural ways to preserve food without chemicals. That book covers everything from ancient Egyptian techniques to modern cryogenics." "The torn pages?" "I spilled coffee on them. They were ruined, so I threw them out." But her eyes didn't meet his. Norton knew a lie when he heard one. "Maria, we found traces of propylene glycol in the tree, the same chemical you use in your industrial freezer." She stood up abruptly. "I need to get back to work." "Sit down." She sat. "The night the sisters disappeared, you closed the diner at 9, but your utility records show power usage until midnight. The industrial freezer was running at maximum." "I was cleaning, deep cleaning the freezer." "Or freezing something that needed to be preserved." Maria's composure finally cracked. "You don't understand. This town has secrets, dark secrets that would destroy everything if they came out." "What secrets?" "Ask Derek Morrison about the research permits. Ask him about what really happened in these forests in the 70s. Before Norton could respond, his phone rang. Officer Chen from the surveillance team. "Detective, we have a problem. Maria Santos just received a package. No return address. She opened it, went white, and now she's destroying documents in her office." Norton ran back to the main diner. Maria was feeding papers into a portable shredder, tears streaming down her face. "Stop! Those are evidence." But she continued shredding until Norton physically pulled her away. The remaining papers were shipping invoices for chemicals, all dated before the sisters' disappearance, all for chemicals that matched the tree cavity composition. "I had no choice," Maria sobbed. "They said they'd expose everything, about the medications I was selling, about the loggers who depended on me for pain relief, about the whole underground network that keeps this town functioning." "Who's they?" "I don't know. Phone calls with voice modulators, emails from encrypted accounts. They knew everything about everyone. They told me exactly what to order, when to order it, where to deliver it." Norton examined the shredded papers, trying to piece them together. One fragment caught his eye. A delivery address: Forest Service Station 7, Derrick's Station. That afternoon, Norton drove to the forestry station with 2 state troopers. Derrick was in his office, updating digital maps on multiple monitors. His workspace was meticulously organized: weather patterns, tree disease tracking, wildlife migration routes, the data of the forest reduced to pixels and patterns. "Detective Norton, what can I help you with?" "These chemical deliveries to your station." Norton showed him the invoice fragment. Derrick examined it carefully. "We order supplies for beetle treatment. Some chemicals overlap with preservation compounds. It's not unusual." "Show me the storage." Derrick led them to a locked shed behind the station. Inside, industrial shelves held various chemicals, all properly labeled and documented. Everything had paperwork. Everything was legal. "See? All accounted for. Every purchase, every use, logged and filed." Too perfect. Just like Jacob's halfway house records. Norton noticed something else: a refrigeration unit in the corner, humming quietly. "What's that for?" "Specimen storage. When we find diseased trees or unusual fungi, we preserve samples for the state laboratory." "Open it." Inside were dozens of sealed containers, each labeled with dates and GPS coordinates. Nothing suspicious, nothing human. But one container was different. Older. The label had been replaced recently, the adhesive still fresh. "What's this one?" Derrick checked his tablet. "Bark samples from the oak tree, the one where you found the sisters. I collected these during routine inspection in 2019. before or after they disappeared. Before, October 1st, according to my log. But something bothered Norton. The container's seal was broken and resealed, multiple times, judging by the adhesive patterns. You kept checking these samples? Periodically. The beetle infestation was concerning. I wanted to track its progress. That evening, Norton received a call from Tom Wheeler, the logger who'd found the bodies. "Detective, I remembered something. Might be nothing, but 4 years ago, right around when those girls disappeared, I saw lights in the forest, middle of the night. Thought it was poachers, but when I checked the next day, nothing. No tracks, no shells, no sign of anyone." "Where exactly?" "Section 7, near that old oak." Section 7, Derek's territory. Norton pulled the old case files, cross-referencing Derek's patrol logs with the timeline of the disappearance. Derek had logged a patrol in Section 9 that night, 15 miles from the oak tree. His GPS tracker confirmed it. He couldn't have been in 2 places at once, unless the GPS was wrong or tampered with. The next morning brought a breakthrough. Emily's journal, thoughtfully examined 4 years ago, yielded new secrets under ultraviolet light. Invisible ink, the kind teenagers use for secret messages. Most entries were typical teenage concerns: boys, school, dreams of leaving Cedar Grove. But one entry, dated October 14th, the day before she disappeared, glowed with ominous meaning. "Sarah's wrong about D. He's not harmless. Saw him watching her again today, following her. She thinks he's just dedicated to his job, but I know obsession when I see it. Mom was the same way before she left. That focus that blocks out everything else. D has it bad." D. In the visible ink, she'd written, "D knows about the tree." In invisible ink, the story was different. Norton confronted Derek at the station. "You were interested in Sarah Brennan." Derek's expression didn't change. Everyone was interested in Sarah. She was brilliant, passionate about conservation. She understood the forest like few people do. "Emily thought you were obsessed." Emily was a teenager who saw drama everywhere. I respected Sarah. We worked together on her research project about old-growth forests. Nothing more. "Show me the research." Derek pulled up files on his computer. Emails between him and Sarah about tree age dating, core sampling techniques, preservation of old-growth forests. Professional, appropriate, but frequent. Very frequent. "You email about work at midnight?" Sarah kept odd hours. She was dedicated to her research. Norton noticed something in one email. Sarah had written, "Thanks for showing me the oak tree. It's perfect for my project." "You showed her the oak tree? The one where we found them?" Derek hesitated for the first time. "It's a significant tree, 400 years old, perfect for her research on longevity and preservation." "When?" "September p.m., the night she died." "Derek, thank you for offering to show us the new owl nesting site tonight. Emily's excited to see it too. We'll meet you at the oak tree at 10. S. The oak tree. Where it all began. Where it all ended. But the email was fake. The metadata showed it was created yesterday. Derek was covering his tracks, creating evidence for a story only he knew. As darkness fell over Cedar Grove, Norton stood at the oak tree with his team. Derek was out there, somewhere in the vast forest. A man who knew every tree, every trail, every hidden place. "He'll come back," Norton said. "He has to." "Why?" "Because the bodies are gone. His preservation project is ruined, and people like Derek, they can't leave things unfinished." In the distance, a branch snapped, then another. Someone was coming through the forest, moving fast, moving with purpose. But when the figure emerged from the tree line, it wasn't Derek Morrison. It was Jacob Brennan, carrying something that would change everything. Jacob Brennan emerged from the forest carrying a Forestry Service backpack, his hands covered in dirt and blood from thorn bushes. His eyes were wild, desperate, but focused. "I found his camp," Jacob gasped, dropping the backpack at Norton's feet. "Derek's been living out there, planning something." Norton opened the backpack carefully. Inside were notebooks, dozens of them, filled with Derek Morrison's neat handwriting, detailed observations about Sarah Brennan, her routines, her interests, her relationships, but also about Emily, and Maria, and Jacob himself. Everyone was being watched. Everyone was part of some larger plan. "Where did you find this?" "Section 12. There's an old ranger cabin, abandoned since the 80s. I remembered it from when we were kids. Derek took me and my sisters camping near there once." Jacob's voice cracked. "He was always around when we were growing up. The helpful forest ranger who taught us about nature. Sarah loved those trips." Norton flipped through the notebooks. One entry stopped him cold. "October 14th, 2019. Tomorrow, Sarah leaves for Portland permanently. Her boyfriend convinced her to transfer schools. She'll be gone forever, unless I preserve her here, where she belongs. Emily, unfortunately, knows too much. She saw me at Sarah's apartment last night. The preservation chamber is ready. 4 years of preparation. The oak tree will be their monument." 4 years. Derek had been planning this since 2015. Officer Chen's radio crackled. "We have movement at the forestry station. Someone's inside." Norton left 2 officers to secure the scene and search for more evidence. He raced back to the station with Jacob still following, unable to stay away from the investigation of his sister's murders. The station was dark except for a single light in Derek's office. Through the window they could see him at his computer, typing frantically. "Destroying evidence," Chen whispered. "Or creating it," Norton replied. "Surround the building. Nobody moves until I give the signal." Norton entered alone, his weapon drawn, but lowered. Derek didn't look up from his screen. "Hello, Detective. I'm just finishing my confession. Want to make sure everything's properly documented." Derek's voice was calm, professional. "I've always believed in good record-keeping." "Step away from the computer, Derek." "In a moment. I'm explaining about Maria and Jacob, how they helped me, how this was all their idea." Derek continued typing. "Amazing what you can make people believe with the right digital evidence." "We know you acted alone." Derek finally looked up, and Norton saw something he'd missed before. Complete emptiness in his eyes. No emotion, no guilt, no fear. Nothing. "Did I? Maria provided the chemicals. Jacob had motive. The evidence is very clear." "Your notebooks say otherwise." Derek smiled then, an expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Notebooks can be forged. I should know. I've been forging evidence for weeks. Jacob's signature at the halfway house? I did that. Maria's chemical orders? Placed them myself using her accounts. Even poor Tom Wheeler got paid to find the bodies exactly when I wanted them found." "Tom was in on it?" "No, but he received an anonymous tip about valuable timber in Section 7. Cash incentive to cut there first. He never knew he was being directed." Derek stood slowly. "Everything was planned, Detective, except one thing." "What?" "Sarah wasn't supposed to fight back." The words hung in the air. Finally, the truth was emerging. Derek walked to his filing cabinet, pulling out a thick folder. "This is my real confession, written 4 years ago, right after it happened. I've been carrying it ever since, waiting for the right time." Norton took the folder, keeping his weapon trained on Derek. Inside were photographs, detailed accounts, and something else. Sarah's missing journal, the one everyone had been looking for. "Read her last entry," Derek said. Norton flipped to the final page, dated October 15th, 2019. "Derek Morrison is sick. I found cameras in my apartment, found his notebooks in the old ranger cabin, years of surveillance, years of obsession. I'm going to the police tomorrow. Emily says we should confront him first, give him a chance to get help. We're meeting him tonight at the oak tree. If he confesses, maybe we can avoid destroying his life. He's not evil, just broken. I hope." "She wanted to help me," Derek said quietly. "Even knowing what I was, she wanted to help. That's when I knew she was perfect. Too perfect for this world. Too perfect to leave." "So you killed her." "I preserved her. There's a difference." Norton felt sick. "Tell me what happened. All of it?" Derek returned to his chair, folding his hands like someone about to give a lecture. "I showed Sarah the oak tree in September, just her initially. It was supposed to be romantic. A 400-year-old giant with a secret heart. She brought Emily, though. Always brought Emily. The protective older sister. Emily saw how I looked at Sarah, saw through my professional facade." He pulled up photos on his computer. Sarah and Emily at the oak tree, smiling, unaware of being photographed. I'd already been preparing the tree. The hollow was natural, but I enhanced it. Created a preservation chamber using techniques from my forestry training and research I'd done on Egyptian mummification. The boreholes allowed me to introduce chemicals without damaging the tree's exterior. "You planned to kill her from the beginning?" "Not kill, preserve. When I learned she was leaving for Portland, transferring schools to be with that boyfriend, I knew it was time. She belonged here, in the forest she loved, with someone who truly appreciated her." Norton kept him talking while officers moved into position outside. "October 15th. I sent the fake email about the owl nesting site. They met me at the oak at 10 p.m. Sarah had my notebooks with her. She'd broken into the ranger cabin, found everything. She said she was disappointed in me." "Disappointed?" "Like I was a child who'd misbehaved." Derek's calm cracked slightly, showing something underneath. Rage. "She laughed when I told her I loved her. Said it wasn't love, it was sickness. Said I needed help. Emily tried to run to get phone signal. I had to stop her." "How?" "The forestry tool. Quick blow to the temple. She went down immediately. Sarah screamed, tried to help her sister. That's when she fought back. Scratched my face, nearly got my gun. But I was stronger. The report was damning. Derek Morrison showed signs of severe antisocial personality disorder combined with an obsessive fixation on preservation and control. He'd been building toward this his entire career, using his position to hunt, kill, and preserve victims while appearing to be the helpful, dedicated forest ranger. His computer revealed years of research into mummification, chemical preservation, and tree biology. He'd written papers under pseudonyms about theoretical preservation techniques. He'd even contributed to legitimate forestry journals about tree cavity formation and maintenance. But the most disturbing discovery came from his childhood records. Derek had been found at age 7, preserving dead birds in his family's freezer. His parents had gotten him therapy, which seemed to work. He'd channeled his obsession into forestry, into legitimate preservation of nature, until he met Sarah Brennan. Something about her triggered his dormant pathology. She became his perfect specimen, the one worth preserving forever. In his final statement before sentencing, Derek Morrison stood before the court, showing no emotion as family members of his victims wept in the gallery. "I'm not asking for forgiveness or understanding. What I did was necessary from my perspective. Sarah and Emily Brennan were extraordinary individuals who deserved better than to age, decay, and be forgotten. I gave them permanence." The judge sentenced him to life without parole for each murder, to be served consecutively. As they led him away, Derek turned to look at the gallery one last time. "Check the old growth forests in Washington State. I did my doctoral research there. The FBI is still searching." 3 months after Derek's conviction, Detective Norton stood at the site where the oak tree had been. It had been cut down, removed, the ground excavated to ensure no more secrets lay beneath. In its place, the Brennan family had planted 2 saplings, one for Sarah, one for Emily. Norton placed flowers at the memorial marker between the young trees. The inscription read, Sarah and Emily Brennan, sisters, dreamers, forever free. As he walked back to his car, Norton noticed something. One of the Forestry Service trucks parked at the trailhead. The new ranger for Section 7, a young woman fresh from college, was updating trail markers. She waved at Norton, friendly and helpful. Norton waved back but couldn't shake the feeling. How many Derek Morrisons were out there? How many helpful, friendly faces hid darkness? How many trees in how many forests held secrets that would never be found? He drove away from Cedar Grove, leaving the forest and its shadows behind. But he knew he'd never look at trees the same way again. Every hollow trunk, every dark cavity in ancient wood would remind him of Sarah and Emily Brennan and the man who'd tried to make them eternal. The case was closed. Justice was served. But in the vast wilderness of the Pacific Northwest, where millions of trees stood silent and secret, Norton wondered what other horrors waited to be discovered. Some secrets, he realized, the forest would keep forever. Derek Morrison was right about one thing. The oak tree would have stood for centuries. But the memory of Sarah and Emily Brennan, two sisters who just wanted to help a sick man, would last even longer. Not preserved in wood and chemicals, but in the hearts of those who loved them, and in the justice that finally found them. The forest took them, but it couldn't keep them. They were finally, truly free.